Welcome to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Michael Grace, co-founding member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. And today I will be doing the show without our brother Julian Harper and without our brother Noel Leader. In any event, they are on Community Cop assignment at this time. And so, you know, the show must go on, and certainly we have a lot to offer tonight. And in their absence, I'll try to convey as much information as I could in a short period of time. But as you well know, those who watch the show, we start out with this week in our history, because our history is so replete with information and events that we should never forget that oftentimes you see shows and they don't really understand whose shoulders they're standing on. So in any event, let us start with this week in our history. 7/12/1967. This is the anniversary of the Newark Rebellion, commonly referred to as Newark Riots. Certainly we have to keep that in mind because it was just so important an event. It was a climax to a potentially explosive situation from the outset. You had abuse by police officers, the Newark Police Department, on the citizens of Newark or any Black person who came through there. So as things mounted and got more serious, on that date, you had a Black cab driver who was pulled over in a basic car stop. But as events unfolded, he was physically abused right there in the street, and people witnessed it. So you have a situation where you had people read and react to a totally unnecessary situation. If you were going to arrest them, if you concluded that there was a traffic violation, if you concluded later on that that his license had been expired, then fine, you arrest the person, no problem. But in any event, that wasn't the case, and you had a situation where they abused the person, sparks flew, a rally came after that, and at the rally, a police officer at least claimed that a car window in his car was broken, and that's when things really exploded, and excessive police force came into existence, where you had not only the police, but you had the National Guard. The governor charged the National Guards. Consequently, you had an excessive situation in a very small contained area in Newark. So people were killed. A lot of Blacks were killed, not only by the Newark Police Department, but also by the National Guard, who shot Blacks. And there was some return fire, and an officer was killed. But, you know, nonetheless, there were a lot of wounds. A lot of people were shot. A litany of arrests occurred, and that happened sort of around the same time that so many things were going on. It was an explosive environment going on all over the country, but it was really hostile, and that was the spark. And this went on for about 5 days, from the 12th through the 17th, so about 5 days. this went on, and then order was restored. But in any event, we should never forget the Newark riots. And as I said, you know, this got excessive after a rally to support the brother and those who was assaulted by the Newark Police Department. So even a peaceful protest, demonstration can turn ugly. And this is why it's so important to have the proper police supervision. And this is why it's important to have people that's leading a march to be mindful of even provocateurs who might help to enhance or ignite a potential situation. Also, besides the Newark, this is the anniversary, 7/17/2014, of Eric Garner. Certainly, we all can't forget something that 7 years ago, 2014, happened, where Eric Garner, a Black man who was stopping a fight, a potential fight between two individuals, was accosted by the NYPD. In this particular situation, they had harassed him in the past for selling loosies, you know, loose cigarettes. And it's a violation, and certainly it's not legal. However, it did not require the type of police action that that happened that day, and certainly to have 8 police officers, 1 supervisor, to be there on the scene and to watch things get out of hand with a Black man that was not resisting arrest. He was obviously upset with being harassed because money had been taken from him before, property had been confiscated from him in the past. Consequently, he felt it right to vent and express himself, that he's tired of it, the harassment. And this, at that point, he was assaulted, and once he went down, they took him down, and it got out of hand. And with the supervisor there, a female, a sister actually, everybody else was white, but the actual supervisor, who was not their immediate supervisor, but actually was almost passing by. She had another assignment at that time. So in any event, Eric Garner was killed on the spot, similar to what happened to George Floyd. He said around a dozen times that he couldn't breathe. He made that crystal clear. And we've all watched that video and in its entirety. And he did not resist. He was a big man, tall and big, and could have posed a physical problem to those officers, to force them to go to a greater extreme than what it would take normally. I wouldn't say deadly physical force, but they would apply the force necessary to really stop him had he resisted. He was not resisting. His hands actually, more often than not, was over his head, and he at no time struck out against the officers in question. So in any event, let's not forget what happened in Staten Island on that day to a Black man who was stopping 2 Black men from hurting each other, was not at that time in the commission of a crime. He was not selling loosies at that time. And I need to make that clear. So in any event, he lost his life. The family sued the Democratic Party, who had the ability to have a modicum of justice, knowing that you have a Black you have a Democratic governor, you have a Democratic mayor. And this is why truly I wonder who would want to be the face of the Democratic Party when Democrats control the state, the city, and yet you have a situation where they were all given a pass. And the immediate district attorney, who was a Republican in Staten Island, refused to file charges against those officers in question. And this was done in plain sight. So you have a situation where the Democratic Party did not do what it could have done for justice. So ergo, a lot of civil rights action and in the so-called action was fluff at best, because you could have forced the situation. You could have used the Justice Department, which was controlled by the Democratic Party, as you well know. You had President Obama in office at that time. So it's not like Trump was around at that time. You had a black, Holder, and then Loretta Lynch later at the helm of the Justice Department. So there was no excuses in terms of the Democratic Party. So you can't blame that on Trump. This situation, even though there was a lack of concern from the DA, who later became a congressperson from Staten Island, but at that time refused to prosecute those officers, something still could have been done. So in any event, let's not forget Eric Garner. And last but not least, in terms of history, this is the passing of, in my humble opinion, the greatest historian, at least in our lifetime, that we produce. We've had so many great ones, and don't want to in any way throw shade on who you might think was the best, but certainly Dr. John Henry Clarke, you have to give it to him, was one of the best. Now, to me, he was the greatest storyteller of our lifetime. No one can tell a story like Dr. Clarke. He made history so relative. He made it so interesting. And it was live, where you actually could see yourself in the picture that he would create. Dr. John Henry Clarke. We kind of like look at him as Harlem's own, even though obviously Alabama and Georgia, those aspects of his family would have something to say and who produced him. But certainly in New York, we claim him as ours. Dr. John Henry Clarke, I've been to his house there in Strivers Row in Harlem. And I'll just leave you with something that I've never forgotten that he said, and maybe I should read it so I won't miss a word. But John Henry Clarke, on talking about the role of history, these are his words, and they're so succinct and to the point, it makes you understand why he drove so hard and sacrificed so much for our people, and all of his cubs, the Dr. J's and so many others. And it's just incredible. These are some brief words that gives you the essence of Dr. John Henry Clarke. The role of history is to tell a people what they have been, where they have been, what they are, where they still must go, and what they still must be. That's simply put by a great historian who gave so much of his life. That's Dr. John Henry Clarke telling you what we were, where we were, and what we still must be, where we still must go. So let's always remember the great Dr. John Henry Clarke, one of the greatest historians we've ever produced. And with that, we'll get started. There's a lot made about, so much made about voting rights, as we've seen. And this is why Dr. Clarke is so important with telling us who we were, where we were. Because right now, there's been a diminution in certainly in our civil rights, and certainly the exercise of being able to vote, so important to those who vote, and so important to those who are considering giving your vote to a particular candidate. So you have, whether it's Texas, Georgia, and so many other places among the old Confederacy. Now, these people have never stopped the Civil War. So you have a situation where there's going to be voter rights suppression, voter restrictions. I mean, in Georgia, I mean, how can you make a law where there's a violation if you were to give somebody water that's standing on the line, because you reduce the sites, you reduce the sites and the hours on which somebody can do early voting. And then to put fuel to the fire, you are not allowed to pass out food. Lo and behold, you can't pass out water. Something as basic that's been around for millions of years, water, H2O. You can't pass that out in Georgia, and I'm sure that other states will find different ways to persecute those that pass out water bottles to elderly people who've been standing on a voting line for hours. So these are all badges of slavery. And all badges of slavery should have been removed with the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. Obviously, these civil rights and these Civil War amendments have not been exercised. As I said early on, there's been a diminution of these rights that we've achieved, and certainly the case in Alabama showed that that these rights have been scaled back to a point where they literally almost don't exist anymore. It's been plundered. So when you see situations where people are being taken off the voting rolls, their ability to vote has been restricted, you ask why. You know, why is the current president, Joseph Biden, why is he acting so magnanimous and acting as if this is something that he can't handle? He is making it just a moral issue. Well, America promotes itself as a land of law, not of men. Consequently, no one is above the law. So even governors, with all their power, cannot go against the law. And you don't have to remind Biden of that. Biden is an attorney. He knows that full well. So when these cases come up, when you see violations of people's basic human rights, civil rights, there are laws governing that, laws that are on the books. You don't need a whole lot of new laws. So legislators who legislate, they say, oh, I wrote this bill, I wrote that bill. They're not defending people. They're just saying they want to justify their existence. You know, Democrats are good for that, telling you, oh, I wrote this bill. I wrote this bill. I helped finance this school being built. Or I helped finance a park. Well, what else you gonna do? Of course you could do that, but in plain sight, things are happening in the country every day that shows this Civil War thing ain't over. Take monuments, for example. Last week, several monuments, Confederate monuments, were removed in Charlottesville, Virginia. In Charlottesville, Virginia, and that's a town. I've been there quite a few times. That's where the University of Virginia is located, and that's really Robert E. Lee's. That's where Robert E. Lee actually lived in that area, and you have a situation where Robert E. Lee's statue was removed. Stonewall Jackson. These are two of the highest Confederate heroes one can imagine. The big three, just in case you don't know, are Robert E. Lee, General Robert E. Lee, to give him his proper title, General Stonewall Jackson, Thomas Stonewall Jackson is another, and obviously the third hero of the Confederacy is the outlaw president, criminal. Jefferson Davis is the third. If there's a fourth, then it would be Bedford Forrest. Then there's four, because obviously they have more than just three heroes. Nathan Bedford Forrest, whose statue was removed several places also, including the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is etched in our history because those who crossed that bridge on Bloody Sunday were beaten by law enforcement. And not only that, because they had another rally less than a week later. They did another march, and at that march, Dr. King was there. Now, he was supposed to be at the first one, and it's never been explained why he wasn't there on Bloody Sunday. It's never been explained to anyone's satisfaction, to true satisfaction. But in any event, he was there at the next one, and they had obviously federal troops there, and the cameras there, and things were more tame. But between mob violence and law enforcement, they were actually beaten, and obviously John Lewis became famous after that. He was among those who were beaten, and he was able to parlay that into actually a lifetime job as a congressperson. So in any event, this Civil War seems to be continuing, and you see various aspects, whether it's voting, whether it's indecisions with respect to courtroom drama. And we're going to get into a few things that only further highlights that, but I wanted to, as a backdrop, with the premise of we under attack, and we need to understand that if we don't fight, whether it's in the streets, whether it's through organizations, we're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Because if you think that voting for a candidate means you've done your job, and which they would have you believe, elected officials will look at themselves, as I said weeks ago, they are invited to community-based meetings, organizational meetings, and they are whisked to the front, and they in turn feel like they're doing their job, like Black elected officials are doing their job. Now, white elected officials truly represent, their real representatives. Black folks are just elected officials. They don't represent the Black community. And even when they speak, they'll let you know they're there to represent everybody, not us. White people have no problem letting you know we're here for white people. Black elected officials are there for everybody, which means you're not there for us, for the Black community. So you do their will and you think you're doing a great job. And unfortunately, Black elected officials stay in office 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years in situations. And if you left it up to them, they would die in the office. They would stay there as long as they could and never work a day in their life, make a whole lot of money, and do absolutely nothing for our people, but are constantly being honored and looked up to as paragons of virtue. And yet, they don't have a track record of doing anything for our community. You know, you have a Wilson Good who, after the fact, will say that no MOVE members actually shot at the police and that it was not a MOVE member who killed that police officer in that MOVE action that took a police officer's life. But that's after the fact. You see a David Dinkins talking about the Central Park situation after the fact, saying a whole different thing. And he was the one who said that these young men were wilding. We'll look at his commentary later about how they were treated. He'll mention whether it was the prosecutorial misconduct, and he'll mention how in the press, how they were lambasted in the press. But he was the one that called it wilding. David Dinkins, he was mayor at that time. Well, he was mayor at the time and Cuomo was governor when Automatic's license was taken. So it's not comforting. It's not, you shouldn't be in a comfort zone because Democrats are in charge. I don't understand why Eric Adams says he wants to be the face, or he is the face of the Democratic Party. Are you the face of the Democratic Party that created a riot and actually destroyed and removed all the Black elected officials in Wilmington? That was the Democratic Party that did that. It was the Democratic Party that allowed the license to be taken from Automatic's, the state legislature. No crimes were committed. To this day, they can't mention a crime that Automatic's did. Well, the Democrats controlled Brooklyn. Was there justice when a Black woman was beaten on Church Avenue by Koreans? What elected officials came to her aid? So I'm saying to say that, and actually, when in Ferguson, those were Democrats. When Mike Brown was killed, those were Democrats that controlled not only the state, but that city and St. Louis, which is right next door. Democrats. So, you know, I'd rather want to be known as a Black man that stood for Black people, as opposed to being the face of a racist party. That's probably, we're talking about the difference in a Democrat and a Republican. We're merely talking about degrees. It's not a stark difference. If the Democrats can get by and get in without your vote, then it would. But since it needs your vote, it has to show some semblance of respect for civil rights, as opposed to a party that feels, well, we're only getting 10% of the Black vote anyway. I don't even know how they get that. But since they're not getting a lot, and the Blacks that are there, most of the times they're store-bought Negroes. So they get that level of support. And I'm not saying you black if you vote Democrat and you're other than black if you vote Republican. Not doing that at all. So don't come at me with that foolishness, because I could see the sickness in both of them. It was Democrats and Republicans that helped remove Adam Clayton Powell Jr. from office. They worked together. It was Democrats and Republicans that removed Cynthia McKinney from office. They worked together. And those are the same ones that took the law license of Alton Maddox, Democrats and Republicans. So I'm not caught in that thing that you black if you vote Democrat. You know, you sometimes it's better to withhold your vote, not vote for anyone. So I'm just saying that, you know, so we'll be clear. Want to, before I even get into some issues that I think we need to look at, I want to commend, and I've been trying to do this for weeks now, and I keep dealing with other issues, but Simone Biles, a sister that has dominated gymnastics, literally every category in gymnastics over the last, 6-7 years. This sister has been untouchable. No one's even close. She's doing things that people just dream of and can't do. And she's making it look easy. If there's a problem, the problem is that she's making it look too easy. And just want to give her credit for dominating the sport that we are not necessarily always found in. Yes, the ability has always been there with us, but that's an art form, that's a sporting event that takes years and years, and you need training. You, as good as you might naturally be, you need so much training, and you need professional attention, the years and years, a commitment from your family to drive you to these locations and to give you the proper training. It takes years. So just want to take my hat off to our sister Simone Biles. She has dominated the entire planet for years, and no one's even close. If she ever loses while she's still competing, then I would say go to the videotape, because that's based on points that somebody's opinion. They could take it. If they get tired of her, they could take it. And but Simone Biles has been nothing short of incredible.
Maria, Murraya.
That is correct.
Zaila Avant-garde, the sister who won the spelling bee recently. We want to give her credit. 14-year-old young sister. I think she's from Louisiana. She's from somewhere in the South. I think Louisiana somewhere. Just want to give her props. Now they're saying that that's the first African-American to win a spelling bee that people all over the world compete in. Well, that might be true, but let's not take that as that's the first Black person to win. We've had sisters from Jamaica and other places win, and even though it's been dominated for years by people from like India, you know, they got people from India that are dark skinned like us, and they're more British than the British. So they love the English language and do well in it, because they look at the Queen of England as their queen, and so much goes into that that, and they train each other from birth, literally, how to win that spelling bee. So to Zaila, big ups, and I saw a video of you not only winning the spelling bee, but I saw your athletic prowess on display, dribbling the basketball and doing things and juggling, doing some juggling where you was juggling 4, 5, 6, 7 things at one time, dribbling, riding on a unicycle, dribbling balls and juggling, and just, just so all around. And that's just incredible. Probably, headed for places like Harvard or Yale, and still finds fun in athletic events. More power to you, sister. Love what you've accomplished so far, and know that the sky's the limit. So just on behalf of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Care, big ups to our sister Zaila. And last but not least, of course, and that goes for Simone Biles too. And last but not least, just want to give credit to Maya Moore. I gave her props years ago when she stepped away from the WNBA, the Professional Basketball League for Women. Gave her props because she was standing for those who could not speak for themselves, unarmed Black men, women, and children who were being killed. She brought so much awareness to that. And it was incredible to see her step away from the Minnesota Lynx after all those titles in college at University of Connecticut. And in my humble opinion, that's the best female basketball player I've ever seen in my life. And that's not because of her activism, her social activism. I felt that way when I saw her step on the court for the University of Connecticut. I've never seen a woman take a basketball to that level. Not only the athleticism, the creativity, the skill set, it was just incredible. I've never seen anybody, any female, get down quite like that. It was Kobe-like to see her, what her brilliance on the court reminds you of Kobe Bean Bryant, certainly. And just so those three, and for her to do all of that, and then to help get a brother who was sentenced to 50 years, and by the way, it's her husband now, but she got this brother, he was going to do 50 years in jail for a robbery and an assault that he didn't do, by the way. Would not pretend that he was an angel, but he was caught up as a young man, raising himself, selling reefer, marijuana, and whatever else he was doing. But in any event, he didn't do what he was charged with. And her family members and extended family members brought her in on that situation, and she looked at it and made it her life's work to get this brother out of jail, which he was successful at doing. So big ups to Sister Maya Moore. So that's 3. Simone Biles, outstanding, the best in the world, not only the best in the world currently, but the best ever in gymnastics, the best ever, hands down. No one has been close to doing what she's been able to do. And then to our sister Zaila, who is more to come, Zaila Avant-garde. And that term, avant-garde, was, her father changed the name, and that was actually, when you hear avant-garde, you think of John Coltrane. That's what they call the music, the type of jazz that he was playing, avant-garde. And I think that white people use that term because they want to develop the narrative on anything we create. So whether it's bebop and whatever other music, the blues and whatever the idiom might be, they will use a term to describe it, and even the term jazz itself. So in any event, avant-garde is when I think of that, I think of Coltrane and others who were just pioneers and just was taking things to higher levels in music. But big ups to, again, to Simone Biles, to our sister Zaila Avant-garde, and then Maya Moore for thinking that there's a higher goal than herself as a basketball player. And that's really being down to earth, to have that fame and fortune and to still have it in your heart where you could help an unknown brother that was toiling in jail low so many years, for 24 years, and you got him out and then married him. That's just God, the God in her, sort of God in him, because without that, it wouldn't have been possible. So she is touched by God. It almost reminds me of a song that Michael Jackson sang when he was still singing with his brothers. He sang a song, With a Child's Heart. And if you see the lyrics of that song, With a Child's Heart, it's reminiscent of the scriptures saying that you have to have a child's heart to enter heaven. That's what Jesus said. You have to have a child's heart. So I know that Maya Moore, who was brilliant and was a scholar in high school, scholar, University of Connecticut, but she has a child's heart, and she's touched by God himself to be so down to earth, so caring, so understanding, and loving our people so much that the fame and fortune did not go to her head. And I'll just say that I could not imagine Serena Williams doing anything like that to stop her profession, to help those who don't have a voice, and to fight for Black men, women, and children who were not in the commission of the crime, who was killed by police officers, and to just give her life to get a Black man who was unjustly incarcerated out of jail, and then to end up falling in love with that person and giving her life in marriage to that person. I couldn't imagine Serena Williams doing anything like that. So big ups to Maya Moore. Big ups to all three of those sisters. Let's get into some law enforcement issues that shows that justice is certainly far fleeting in America. The Sheffield Police Department of Ohio, the police commissioner, Anthony Campo, had to resign on 6/29 because on 6/25, he was caught putting a letter of the Ku Klux Klan on a Black officer's desk. And this is the police commissioner now, their commissioner, their chief, police chief, actually putting a letter on a Black officer's desk right on top of his jacket. And it had the hood and robe symbol that's, indicative of the Ku Klux Klan. And the video footage came out later, which he didn't know. I mean, I don't know how you can be a police chief and not know that a videotape is on in an office, but which shows you how bright he or lack of intelligence he probably has, even though he rose to the rank of police chief. So when after being caught, he tried to explain to the mayor, what's the mayor's name? Well, he tried to explain to the mayor that it was just a joke. Police chiefs don't joke that way. That's not a joke. There's a history. Because from the outset, to claim it's a joke is to dismiss the history of the Klan? How can you dismiss the history of intimidation and bloodshed, of people actually being killed by Ku Klux Klan members, being hanged, families being run out of town, savagely killed? That long history that goes back to what, 1866? And you're gonna say you was joking when you did it after you was caught? So he was removed by the mayor, and he tried to actually tell the mayor, Mayor Dennis Bing, that's Sheffield's mayor, and that's not far from Cleveland. It's in Ohio. The police department is in Ohio. And he actually tried to tell Mayor Bing that it was just a practical joke. You don't joke when you are dropping a letter with the Ku Klux Klan symbol on it. You're not joking when you drop a noose on a black man's desk or put a noose on his locker at your law enforcement agency. That's not a joke. Professionals don't do that. That's indicative of how you really feel. So in any event, he was allowed, the mayor sounded disgusted by his position that it was just a joke, but the mayor allowed him to resign. Now, to me, you can't have it both ways. He should have been fired. When you do something like that, you fire the person. You don't turn around and allow that person to resign. You fire them. Whether they keep their pension or not, even if the pension will be still implemented for that person in question, you still should fire. It should be on their record that they were fired from that police department, not allowed to resign. And that happens too much. It happens too much. Too many situations. A person is allowed to resign. Consequently, they have a pension. They have a record where they stepped away from the job. Oftentimes, when you describe a person, you say retired officer, retired captain, so-and-so. Or you can say former. And so when you see former sometimes, instead of retired, when you see former, that means that sometimes when you delve into it, you'll see something was going on. Now, there was a situation that happened back in March, and it's come to a conclusion. So we were on it in March. This was white supremacist Lee Mayow. He pled guilty to beating Devon Freeland. He beat him with a chain and a bike lock. Now, at this this situation was at a beach parking lot, and 3 Black teenagers were playing their music, and I guess from his vantage point, they were playing the music loud. And he demanded around a crowd of white people that they turn the music down. They responded in kind by not turning the music down. They left the music the way it was. So he threatened to come over there to deal with them. They just stood there and watched him. Now, I don't think you should stand there and not respond at all once a person says to you things like, niggas don't belong on the beach, and shouting things like, these niggas are playing gang music. And I wished, and he even yelled to them, I wish they would say something so I can go over there and beat them. Well, they didn't respond to anything and just stood there and didn't say anything back. So he went to his car, got a big heavy chain and a bike lock, went upside the head of Devin and almost killed him, just knocked him out cold. And he was looking at 10 years in jail. And he got, because he pled guilty, you know, and obviously when they whisper to you, look, you better plead guilty, and because you're guilty, and white people witnessed the whole thing. They didn't do anything. The black teenagers did nothing, and you just imposed your will on them. So he pled guilty, and instead of getting 10 years, he's getting 5 years, and he's getting 3 years supervision at home supervision. So he will not, you know, do the full 10 years. He'll do 5, and he'll be released with supervision for a 3-year period. So in any event, the judge should not have ruled that way, but this only shows you what justice looks like in America. And on a lighter note, but just as important, ESPN, and that's the top sports channel probably in the world, ESPN, Rachel Nichols, her show is called The Jump, an hour-long show where she is the host and has various NBA players from the National Basketball Association. She'll have them on and interview them, talk and chat, you know, with them. That's a show. It comes on 5 times a week. She has had a battle. She has waged a battle against a black woman named Maria Taylor. If you are an NBA fan and you watch the basketball games, last year in the finals, where they were actually, you know, during COVID-19, during the finals, Maria Taylor was picked to actually host the finals, which she did and did a great job. She's also hosting the finals right now as we speak. She's doing these finals. Well, Rachel Nichols did not take too kindly. Rachel Nichols, in case you don't know, is a white woman. She didn't take too kindly to Maria Taylor being the host for the NBA finals. See, so what she did was she didn't know that the camera was on. You know, a camera, a hot camera, or a hot mic. You always gotta, you don't want to be the story. You know, you don't want to be the story as a journalist. But in any event, what she did was she was speaking on the phone with Adam Mendelsohn. And Adam Mendelsohn is a white man who's an advisor to LeBron James. And he encouraged her and told her to push back against that decision by ESPN to have Maria Taylor host the finals. He said he's exhausted with Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement. So he perceives Maria Taylor to have that job to host the finals because of Black Lives Matter. In other words, Black people exercising their rights, and also the Me Too movement. You know, primarily a women's movement, Me Too. Consequently, and Rachel Nichols responded to what he was saying by laughing, and actually that's showing approval and agreement. Now, she's been waging this war for a year, and obviously people at the network chose sides, whether they're for, but you know, they're all silent. None of them is speaking on it. And she had to issue a lightweight apology, just saying she's sorry if she offended Maria Taylor. She's very sorry about that, and she was mad that that camera was on, which she thought it was off, but it exposed the true her. Every day she's smiling and acting all dainty on TV, but now you see how she really feels about Black people. See, you have to remember, and this is why what Dr. Clark said about history's role is to remind you of who you are, where you've been, and what you still must do. So Rachel Nichols is always at war because she got her own show. Maria Taylor doesn't have a show. Rachel Nichols, the white woman, has her own show, yet is mad that she can't have it all. She wants to also host the NBA Finals. Now she does a halftime thing, or she'll speak at certain things. She'll be on the floor and do a little bit here or there during the finals and during the playoffs, but she wants it all. See, white women have always had this thing with Black people because white women acknowledge that the white man is in charge. That's undisputed. That's not nothing, that's not even debatable, as Noel would say. It's not debatable. That's how he likes to put it. So in any event, she knows the white man is in charge, but she feels she should be second. So she feels the white woman should be second, a close second after the white man. This is why Hillary Clinton had so many problems with Obama, because she felt she was entitled to be president before Obama. See, you have to remember, the white woman was mad that in 1870, the Black man had the right to vote after beating the hell out of the Confederacy, which I've already explained before. That Black people fought for their own freedom. The Black soldier was able to free the Black man, Black woman, and Black children. And we were able to exercise certain rights, limited, but certain rights with respect to marriage, parent-child relationships, entering into social contracts, what have you, being able to buy land, open businesses, what have you. So the Black man in 1870 had the right to vote. The white woman could not vote legally until 1920. 50 years. The white woman never forgot that the white man allowed the Black man to do something before his woman, before the white woman. So Hillary Clinton felt she was entitled to be president before Barack Hussein Obama, Senator Obama. And she felt that just being married to a former president and being a US Senator representing the state of New York, that was enough for her to be president. And that this junior senator from Illinois, it wasn't his time. So she tried to even sort of make Obama, make her the vice president once he even won the Democratic nomination. Well, he didn't do that because of his wife, who was strong enough to say, no, you know, she's not your vice president. And so in any event, that war, that consistent war that is historical, that has been waged for all these years, is still going on. And it goes down to something like ESPN, a sports network that generates a lot of money. That's under Disney now, you know, and ABC. So you have a situation where she can't even accept a Black woman getting a little foot in the door and able to host the finals. She wants it all. And so she's been waging that battle for a year, and it only came out with all her smiles and giggles it came out because of a hot mic. And as a professional, you should always know that the mic is always on. So you comport yourself in an appropriate fashion. So in any event, this obviously has been handled behind the scenes, whatever they're going to come to. From what I understand, Maria Taylor, her contract should be up soon after the NBA finals are over, whether they're gonna continue her to do the things she's doing now, or whether that's gonna come to an abrupt end, we don't know. But in any event, it shows you who was vying for that position. Once you're a voracious eater, you want to eat all the time. You want to gain significance in everything, and you just want to dominate. And it was exposed because of a hot mic. So that's Rachel Nichols. In case any of y'all are fans of her show, The Jump, now you know how she really feels about Black men and Black women. But it came out on Maria Taylor. But that shows you how she really feels, because she was talking with a white guy who's an advisor to LeBron James, and he's fed up with Black people asserting themselves and women asserting themselves. So the time is close. The time is at hand, but want to just tell you another update. The Ohio Supreme Court rejected the appeal of former police officer Timothy Loman. Now, in case that name isn't familiar with you, he is the police officer that killed Tamir Rice. They fired him in 2017. Now, he actually shot Tamir Rice, I think it was 2014, and it took them a few years, but they fired him. They didn't fire him for killing Tamir Rice. They were looking for a reason to remove him as a police officer without charging him for Tamir Rice's murder. So what they did was he was suspended briefly for, they claim that the exact time that he arrived there, he did not put that on his paperwork when writing up the incident that transpired that took the life of Tamir Rice. So what they did was they fired him because they claimed that he lied on his initial application to become a police officer. And he had worked for a small police department outside of Cleveland before that. But that's not what they fired him for. I mean, that's what they use as an excuse to fire him, that his application had lies on. Well, there's a review process by your personnel department that's supposed to see what job he did as a police officer, even if it's a small police department somewhere in Ohio. You review all of that. You review his record. That's what the personnel is set up to do, to review your whole folder. So they found blatant lies in his folder. Well, they should have done that before he even became a police officer. So he was fired, and like I said, he tried to get his job back. He put in an appeal, and it went to the Ohio Supreme Court to get his job back, and he was backed by the police union, was supporting him all the way. And but the Ohio Supreme Court refused to acknowledge his appeal and shot it down. So since it was rejected, he'll never work as a police officer again, at least in the state of Ohio. You know, who knows what'll happen someplace else, but he was fired as a police officer, but not for killing Tamir Rice. They claim it was, it had more to do with his application. So that should be noted. Now, there are a lot of things that that should be addressed by our people. But stay on guard, stay on guard, stay on your post. Don't leave your post and don't go to sleep on your post with respect to this, especially during this electoral process, and a lot of voting is going to be. Don't take your eyes off the prize because of any one person that's coming into an office. Don't do that. Your responsibility does not end with you pulling the lever and voting for a certain person. You should commit to justice. You should commit to what's right. And we should be unabashedly standing for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with being the face of Black nationalism. There's nothing wrong with being the face of Pan-Africanism. That's what Professor Jeffries is. Leonard Jeffries, the face of Pan-Africanism. And this is what we should all strive to be. Black first. You know, it should be race first. We used to develop great race men and race women. Nothing wrong with that. So to aspire to be the face of the Democratic Party, I don't see it, that's to each his own, but to be known as one first and foremost, to love your people and to stand and represent your people, to fight for that. If we did not love, if 100 Blacks in law enforcement did not love our people, we wouldn't have fought to get John White out of jail because he defended his family against over a half dozen white mobsters, white people encircling his house, trying to rape his wife and kill his son. And for protecting them, he was subsequently arrested and incarcerated. Well, 100 Blacks said, not under our watch. When we saw Jennifer McLegan just this past year being intimidated by a retired police officer out there in Long Island. Well, we went out there to support her. That's what we'd rather be known for, supporting our own. So I say to you, Black man, Black woman, support the Black child. Accept your own and be yourself. And my namaste is sincere when I say the God in me recognize the God in you. That which is divine in me recognize that which is divine in you. So with that, I say peace and power.